Alright guys, the skate world sometimes has interesting news, and it's interesting when the mainstream kind of media gets a hold of it. But now we have news of Tyshawn Jones suing Supreme for a whopping $26 million. I find the amount is funny because it would definitely encourage non-skaters to sort of like think that skaters are making millions of dollars, whereas this is like a super anomaly or whatever. But I thought we could investigate this, learn more about it. I actually do have the court the official lawsuit document as well that I was thinking we could feed into ChatGPT and see if we could understand a bit as well. But what I want to do in this video is kind of go over some articles, go over some videos of people reporting about it, and just try to fully understand the situation. Because all I know is this like headline. I didn't look into it yet, and I thought we could do it together on the stream and in this video right now. So, is this just AI generated video? Let's read the news article. Top New York City skater known as Michael Jordan of the sport sues streetwear company Giant Supreme. Bro, they don't even use his name in the title, but they put Michael Jordan in. Known as the Michael Jordan of the sport. I mean, I feel like that's kind of crazy. Sues streetwear Giant Supreme for eye-popping $26 million. Claims brand destroyed his career. Streetwear giant Supreme killed major sponsorship deal with top pro skateboarder and then spread malicious rumors blaming him for the fallout. A new $26 million lawsuit alleges. Okay, interesting. So they're saying they fired him and then, what is it called? Defamed him? Discredited him? Tyshawn Jones is a 26-year-old pro skater from the Bronx, hailed as the best in the sport. The Bronx, hailed as the best in the sport, is suing Supreme for the arbitrarily killing his $1 million a year deal. See, I would believe that for sure. Like, I think that's legitimate, but barely any skaters are getting $1 million per year. I feel like the only other skaters that is maybe getting that is like Niger type stuff, and then maybe some energy drink type stuff. But for the most part, this is extreme anomaly, and this is more like fashion-based brand rather than like skate-based brand. Never liked Supreme, to be honest. Weird cult-esque fans. If I'm being 100% honest, I do not like Supreme either, but I'll try to be as objective as I possibly can in this. I do sometimes say, if you ever see me in a Supreme shirt, I have been killed and replaced with a body double because I would never wear that. But anyway, his 13-year relationship with the brand, but also for destroying his young career by effectively blacklisting him, his bombshell suit claims. Like, this seems like such a interesting lawsuit. Again, they got his cover when he won Saudi the first time, December 2022. Oh, we got a quote. I am saddened it has come to this, but I have a duty to myself and my career and feel a responsibility to the next generation of skateboarders to stand up for what is right. Jones told the Post on Monday. Can we get that Post interview? What is the Post, a newspaper or what? Supreme's success has been shaped largely part by the contributors of young talent. I believe those contributions deserve to be respected. Wait, this is a quote? Supreme's success has been shaped in large part by the contributions of young talent, and I believe those contributions deserve to be respected. Jones, a worldwide phenomenon considered by many to be the Michael Jordan of the sport, is known for his impressive skating feats across New York City, a talent that Supreme picked up on early and offered him a sponsorship when he was 13. But after Supreme killed the deal last September, an alleged effort quickly shed, other brands starting backing away from Jones too, he claims in his lawsuit filed on Monday in Manhattan Court. I mean, if Supreme is, like, will we get the information why they broke up? But like, if Supreme is like taking away the $1 million deal, it probably means things going bad, and then the other skate companies probably going bad too. Supreme allegedly told multiple third parties Tyshawn was kicked off Supreme for breaching his agreement with them, citing a photo shoot last year where Jones was dressed in another clothes brand, the suit states. I mean, see, what I always think is interesting is surely this is the easiest thing to prove ever. If they kicked him off for wearing another brand, there was probably like a photo or something. Let's just see the photo. But Supreme had never raised concerns in the past over similar photo shoots and actually kicked Jones to the curb in a desperate effort to ditch the debt and stock obligations to the skater before the company was sold. Okay. So what it seems like, this is what it seems like to me. I've read for 1 second and now I've got a big take. it seems like Supreme were like, damn, we're kind of paying this guy a lot of money. Like, maybe we shouldn't be paying him that much. So then they kind of just made like a bullshitty reason to kick him off. And then he's suing them now because of the bullshitty reason. But to say like, oh, I broke the contract all these other times, and then now you care that I broke the contract? Not really that's not really the best argument. But it seems like that's what happened. Supreme's termination is pretext for cost-cutting the filing claims, doubling down on the bad faith and willful breach. Supreme, through several statements, both impermissible and false, has widely disparaged Tyshawn as a liability, a risk, someone no brand would want to affiliate or work with. What's interesting is he's just about to be in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4. That's like just about to come out. So it's interesting timing of this. It's like kind of bad timing. I think it was because they were selling the company and they cut costs. I mean, like, yeah, I was also under the impression that each state is different. In Australia, if you hire someone, it's very, 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 very hard to fire them. I think as an employee, right? See, like, is that what Tyshawn's contract would have been, like, as an employee, like an ambassador? I remember looking when I was moving to California to Braille. California can just fire you for no reason at all. They can just say, "Oh, I don't like you anymore. You're fired." In Australia, you really can't do that. So I don't know what it's like in New York, but I always thought that you could fire people for any time. I guess what this was is they're saying they're firing him middle of his contract, which is a little bit different. But I'm not sure. Surely the contract would have had like firing clauses and stuff. Jones began skating at age 10 and quickly gained fame and notoriety in the niche sport, landing a namesake Adidas shoe model in 2019, both 18 and 2022. The name Tyshawn and Supreme go hand in hand. The suit states, akin to the relationship shared by Nike and Michael Air Jordan. They really, third time they're saying Michael Jordan. What the hell? That all ended September when Supreme told Joyce that their $1 million deal was over, 15 months left in the contract, which paid the skater $1 million per year. See, like, this is the thing. If they kick him off with 15 months left, shouldn't you sue them for like 1.2 million? Where are you getting this 26 number out of? Like, that seems extremely ridiculous. Supreme called August 2024 photo shoot in which Jones wore Marc Jacobs branded clothing an incurable breach of his contract, according to the lawsuit. Surely, like, I don't know enough about legal stuff, but surely you never win these cases. Like, if it's provable that he was wearing this, which probably is easy to prove, like, surely the company will not lose. It was a surprise to Jones, who had taken advantage of modeling and photo shooting opportunities, which Supreme encouraged and never objected to. The suit claims Jones has been dressed in brands like Balenciaga, let's see if I can name it, Bottega Veneta, Louis Vuitton, and more. And he had started in 2022. Global campaign with Tiffany & Co. Yo, that's crazy. Sometimes they'll settle out of court and he'll get some money at least. Yeah, probably. That would probably be the most likely thing, I guess. But it seems kind of cut and dry as well. Soon as the 13-year partnership was dissolved, Jones claimed he learned that his old sponsor was trying to cast him as the bad actor. Through the people in the industry, Jones heard that Supreme was dispensing a narrative that he was at fault, according to the suit. For instance, the photographer of Marc Jacobs' shoot told Jones when they ran into each other at Paris Fashion Week in January that Supreme employees told him that they were no longer doing business together. It seems like they were telling the truth, right? Seems like they didn't say anything negative. Supreme executives were telling other influential people in the skateboarding, fashion, apparel, marketing world that they had to terminate Jones's relationship, falsely categorizing their termination as forced by Tyshawn's material misconduct. The suit alleges Supreme's disparagement of Tyshawn's is fodder for extensive industry gossip, which has quickly spread throughout the fashion, apparel, and skateboarding marketplace. Supreme did not respond to message-seeking comment. Jones's lawyer seeks the $1.5 million he claims he still owed. He is also seeking $25 million in damages. Get the fuck out of here, bro. $25 million? Basically what the damages is saying like, whoa, Supreme talked bad about me. Now I've missed out on $25 million worth of skate endorsement deals. Baker was about to start paying me $10 million per year. You don't know. To me, that seems absolutely insane. I think is damages like you set it, it's like negotiating, you set a high number and then they kind of work their way down? I mean, like, I think this 1.2 million seems a little like he has some, like it could go either way, right? But then the 25 million, like, bro, come on. That seems like an absolute reach. Probably shouldn't scroll down on these news articles. All right. Well, anyway, I thought let's read all the information again. So that was just one article. Let's see if some of the other ones give us anything new. High's nobility. Is that what that is? Why pioneering Supreme skater Tyshawn Jones is suing Supreme for 26 million. Respect the title. They actually used his name and didn't just write Michael Jordan of skating. Tyshawn had a 1 million thing. Let's just see if we get any new information. Jones isn't the first person to... Why are they... Everyone is comparing him to Michael Jordan. Jones didn't merely allege ultimately end the contract, but the brand made malicious false remarks about Jones, which prevented him from securing future work. The names Tyshawn and Supreme... Bro, is this just the same AI article? I think this is literally just the same. But see, like, isn't this evidence of him repping a different brand? So, like, how are they gonna... like, how is he gonna dispute this? You must wear Supreme. Oh, well, I did a Marc Jacobs ad. Like, I don't know. Tyshawn Jones, Louis Vuitton as brand ambassador. Like, bro, how? I didn't expect this from the Tom Brady of skateboarding. What would my title be, guys? If there's Michael Jordan and Tom Brady? Who's a mainstream celebrity? Mark Zuckerberg of skating? Give me a shit one. Give me a terrible one. Okay, what else we got? Tyshawn Jones slaps Supreme with $26 million USD defamation lawsuit. So, also guys, what I thought I understood about the law is you're allowed to sue anyone at any time for any amount. So I could sue Trump or something. I could say, Ricky Glaser sues Donald Trump for $100 million in skateboarding defamation case. I could just make up any suit and then they can like say it, right? That's what I thought. I'm a Disney character? Kid Rock of skateboarding? Damn. Alright, here we go. Pro skater Tyshawn Jones was filed a lawsuit against the studio brand Supreme, $26 million. The complaint alleges Jones claimed multi-year contract was cut. Alright, I feel like we're getting the same information. There's also the lovely place of Reddit that we could investigate too. So because this is Supreme, I feel like this is really reaching outside of skating, you know? So this is Complex posted this. And then, all right, why don't we, yeah, I guess let's keep reading this. It's kind of weird they say he breached his contract for modeling, but as I can remember him being featured in campaigns ad for other brands in the past, I think Supreme was cool with it until new management came, and then they were like, we're paying this guy so much, let's weasel him out of here. Yeah, that seems like what's happening, right? That also seems like that's perfectly within the law. So like, how are they gonna prove that, you know? Can't believe that this is an issue. Tyshawn is practically synonymous with Supreme. You think these guys are skaters on Reddit here? Ricky's the Ian Thorpe of skateboarding. Damn, I'll take that. He had big feet as well. I think he was size 14 or 13 feet. I don't think modeling for a non-skate related brand should interfere with his Supreme contract, but I mean, I would argue Supreme is more of a non-skating brand than a skating brand. So I would argue that it does compete. A lot of skaters these days are doing modeling gigs as a side hustle to make more money. I mean, not really, but... Supreme is not a skate brand, love myself. I agree. That's why I never really... Anyway, I'm objective. If he said in his contract, I can wear Supreme only, that means he can only wear Supreme. Then the whole time he's wearing other brands. Literally sucks from Valencia. That's what I'm saying. It's like... I don't know. I thought this is the tale as old as time. You want to fire someone, you just have to find the reason. You ever been to a nightclub and then people say... you know, you're well within your rights to get in the nightclub, and they look at you and go, oh, not with those shoes, bro. Not with that jacket. Not with that t-shirt. I thought that's the whole game, is like, you just make something. 700K part 2 for real. We found a skater. Ricky's a Tom Cruise of skateboarding. Hell yeah. What did Nikel say? He pretty much went on a rant about how he hates his name being tied to Supreme. and not his music, which is understandable, but you could feel the energy shift once the ownership came in. Okay, so yeah, this is the court document that I wanted to look at. But okay, so there's three videos. Let's watch the non-skating one first, from Complex Style.
12th, pro skater Tyshawn Jones filed a lawsuit against Supreme in Manhattan Supreme Court for $26 million. The news is shocking to say the least. Jones, a two-time Thrasher Skater of the Year and widely considered to be one of the best skaters in the world, has been a face of Supreme and its skate team for the past 13 years. He's been there since he was 11. He's 26 now. That's literally half of his life. He's appeared in skate videos, modeled for the brand in various campaigns, sat courtside at MSG in its gear, and even released a collaboration with his skate hardware brand Hardee's in 2023. As the lawsuit puts it, Tyshawn and Supreme go hand in hand, akin to the relationship shared by Nike and Michael's Air Jordan. That's a big deal. So what happened? We parsed through the official court documents, and here's what you need to know. Supreme claims that Jones' termination was due to a breach of contract. The lawsuit cites a photo shoot that Jones appeared in for a Marc Jacobs sweater in August 2024. It's worth pointing out that this is far from the first time that Jones modeled for another brand. He's appeared in campaigns for Tiffany & Co., was named an official friend of the house for Louis Vuitton in February 2025, and also has an ongoing signature sneaker line with Adidas. Jones alleges that he was always transparent and open about modeling for campaigns that weren't Supreme, and they never had an issue with it. Jones has accused Supreme of defamation and contract breach, according to...
Defamation is crazy. Absolutely crazy. Like, I think he has somewhat of a legitimate case of they saying, hey, 15 months left on the contract, actually you're fired, and then he goes, well, I've been doing this whole thing the whole time. You could, there's a little bit of room for arguing there. I'm not sure which way it will legally roll, but $25 million for defamation is insane.
The lawsuit, Supreme abruptly terminated Jones' contract that was paying him $1 million a year in September of 2024. The filing also notes that the contract stated that Jones could not, quote, directly or indirectly promote, advertise, or endorse any other retailer in the field of skateboarding. That's why you've never seen Tyshawn in Palace or something like that. It's a non-compete clause. Pretty standard stuff in any contract like this. In a statement to the New York Post.
Yeah, so defamation you have to prove. So he would have to prove and say, hey, similar skaters to me, like Andrew Reynolds, are getting $2 million a year from whatever company, but he'll never be able to prove stuff like that. And then he says, oh, because Supreme talked bad about me, I missed out on this $2 million opportunity, which, like, he'll never be able to prove anything like that, I don't think.
Post on Monday, Tyshawn Jones said, I am saddened it has come to this, but I have a duty to myself and my career and feel a responsibility for the next generation of skateboarders to stand up for what is right. At the time of recording this, Supreme and Tyshawn Jones have not responded to Complex's request for comment, but stay tuned as more updates become available. For Complex,
what was this, 1 day ago? All right, let's first up go with my boy, Skate Informant. Like I said, he likes to make news about skate news, usually drama-based, negative videos. He's like, I don't really agree with some of his takes, so I'm curious to see what he thinks. It could go either way. I think most people will echo my sentiment there, but let's see.
What's up, guys? This is your boy P-Rod.
Whoa.
You're watching the Skate Informant. Now, don't forget to subscribe.
How much did he have to pay for that? $25. I also think it is actually extremely against Cameo policies to crop out the Cameo logo.
What's up, guys? This is your boy P-Rod.
So be careful, Skate Informant.
Now, don't forget to subscribe.
That's definitely a Cameo.
Professional skateboarder, two-time Skater of the Year Thrasher winner, and marketing monster Tyshawn Jones has now been involved in what seems to be the most expensive lawsuit in a company that is associated with skateboarding in history. Just yesterday, Tyshawn Jones...
Like I said, 26 mil is the biggest in history. I'm gonna sue someone for 27. I think all you have to do... What do I have to do to sue someone? I think I just have to serve them, and then can you just dismiss the case instantly? Then I'll get the record.
With the Supreme Court of Manhattan, a $26 million 41-page lawsuit against Supreme. Needless to say, they have severed all relationship between both parties, but this is a massive
Then we live stream the trial.
Because Supreme and Tyshawn had been affiliated since he was 11 years old. In this lawsuit, Tyshawn alleges that he was defamed, and there was a wrongful termination of his contract with malicious intent. The lawsuit explains that Supreme and Tyshawn had agreed on a multi-million-dollar contract, approximately...
I want to know how his lawyers come up with the 26 mil. When we get to feeding the thing into ChatGPT, I think it might show, Mike. I can barely read news articles, so reading the actual legal document will definitely be difficult for me. But you guys can help, and we can do ChatGPT too.
$1 million a year for the remaining or indefinite period between the relationship of both parties. Tyshawn Jones also had stake in Supreme that would mature or fully realize if he remained contracted with them.
That's nice that they gave him that.
October 2024. But what do you know?
Tried to give him, I guess.
He was cut and terminated in September 2024. Nearly just a month, 30 days away from maturing. And to give...
Interesting. So there's quite a bit of lag time between this happening and the case. Normally, don't you sue straight away, pretty much? Like, maybe you take it, I guess now, actually, probably to give the defamation more depth is you let more time go past, I guess.
More context to the situation and the craziness of it. It's
25 mil is not crazy. From what I understand, the way they make up the dollars of the case is usually directly related to the charges. 1.25 million is for the rest of his contract, and then the 25 mil is the defamation. So I guess the total case is 26.25 million.
Supreme was
takes time, does it though?
In September 2024, Luxottica, the exotic designer eyewear brand, acquired Supreme for over $1 billion.
Insane.
And Tyshawn's stance in this situation is that this was just a pretext, an excuse to not pay him out both the contract and the stake that he had in Supreme altogether. And it gets even crazier because the excuse and the pretext to do this is this. It has an image. It looks like this, a Superman sweater from a modeling collaboration between Marc Jacobs and Tyshawn.
It's funny that it's all skating and then it's just like fashion bullshit.
This is what allegedly
Superman.
prompted Supreme
Who wants
to
a
say,
Superman logo on a shirt?
Contract. You are now modeling and doing business
What kind
with
of rich
people.
guy wants to buy a
This
Superman
is not
logo?
Cool. We will not stand for this, so we are terminating you 30 days before we're supposed to pay you out, or before you get access to all that money. And of course, because of Tyshawn's notoriety and because so many people know him around the world, a lot of people are chiming in saying, look, man, you can't dip and dabble in all these different brands. Eventually, the contract holders of the brands that you most respect may have an issue with it, and they will have ground to terminate you. And while that may be true in so many different cases, and you should always have a contract that stipulates clearly what you can and cannot do, I want to say,
it seems like they would have had this clearly, but they were kind of just like looking the other way / giving their blessing or whatever when he's doing stuff like this. He probably would have asked them to a degree, and they probably said yes. So I guess he just has to try to like prove something like that to say that it was unjust, I guess.
Allegedly. This sounds like there was some kind of sus activity behind the scenes. Here's why. Whenever companies acquire other companies, they're supposed to do due diligence, financial due diligence, operational due diligence, technical due diligence. You're supposed to investigate what is in the works, how much are said things or findings going to cost the company eventually, what's the return on such investment, and the ultimate decision if they're supposed to be kept or cut. Now, in this situation, they are alleging that because of the Marc Jacobs collaboration, he was in breach of contract and he needed to go without taking any stock or money that he'd earned with the relationship during, I don't know, a decade or more. This seems like faulty logic for the following reasons. We've all seen the Louis Vuitton ads. We've seen the Tiffany & Co. ads. We've seen the Balenciaga ads with Tyshawn.
Which was the like pedophile company? Was it Balenciaga or alleged? What was the name of that one that was like super sus rabbit hole? I don't think it was Balenciaga. I think, maybe was it?
Ads with Tyshawn, all during
Alleged, of
the
course.
Supreme relationship. Why is this now a problem? I have to say that allegedly
It was? Okay.
this does seem to be
Yeah, the like to the
near
children and stuff.
desperate attempt to cut costs. cost, and now Luxottica, the new owners, do not want to pay out, do not want to realize, because maybe somebody did not do their financial due diligence as they should have, and they're trying to get out of the contract. So in these circumstances, although nothing has been said just yet, of course, it was just filed, so this is brand spanking new on the news.
Different conspiracy, yeah, but it was that brand. I was right.
Get that payout are moderate to high. Again, this.
Whoa, wait, why did he say that?
May get that new on the news just yet. Of course, it was just filed, so this is brand spanking new on the news. The chances that Tyshawn may get that payout are moderate to high.
Is this his opinion, or is he reading that from someone? I don't know much about the legal system, but I would say there's absolutely no shot he's going to get this 25 extra million. Maybe the 1 million has a claim, and then maybe Supreme says, hey, we'll give you 500K, and then he goes, okay. I feel like that's the most likely scenario. I think him getting a suit, winning in court, no way. Like, there's no fucking way.
But just with that pure logic and those facts, unless it was stipulated clearly in his contract, he may get something out of it. At the very least, they might come to an agreement and he may settle for a lesser amount, but very much still in the millions. The biggest takeaway from this, guys, that I can think of is that no matter what you do, no matter what people text you saying, yeah, man, that's fine, go ahead, we don't want to get in the way.
What is this? Louis Vuitton, we don't want to get in your way. Supreme reportedly told Jones prior to the contract severance. So long as you're not doing anything for another skate brand or skateboarding team, we don't have a problem with it and don't want to stand in the way of you making money. What is this quote from?
If you're making any money, you need to make sure it's all in writing. Just like your boss's promises to give you
3
that
to 5 mil
promotion,
with NDA, I think that's too much. I don't think it will get to that.
They say you're gonna get, that you're the runner-upper in the chase of getting that new role.
Because like what I said, defamation is hard to prove. So they say, you defamed me, now I can't make money. And then they go, didn't you just get in Tony Hawk's game, the biggest skateboarding video game? And then you go, like, how is that?
Unless
the defamation is not working then.
It's as if it never happened. Guys, I will keep you guys posted on the next, I guess, things that happen, any developments. But until then, I'm the Skate Informant. You've been in.
All right, there's one other one. Shout out to Skate Informant. Thank you for informing us of the skate news. This one too by Skate Wives. I like their content a lot. They're very thorough. They're a little bit more dry. Skate Informant is a little bit more boom, boom, boom. This one, they're a little more dry, but they're usually very well informed. So let's go with these guys too.
About how this photo, or this photo shoot, led to Tyshawn Jones suing Supreme for $26 million in a lawsuit that was filed yesterday. The center of this lawsuit is based on what Tyshawn argues is a wrongful termination by Supreme. And so I've read the 41-page lawsuit, and I'm going to try to summarize it as best as I can here.
Please.
So first, let me give you a little bit of background on both parties here. So we got Supreme. Supreme started in...
I don't see any defamation in this so far. Yeah, I mean, it was alleged. And they just said that one guy said that Supreme reported that they don't work together anymore. It wasn't like, I hate that guy. It was just, don't work together anymore. And it was still just like hearsay from random company or whatever.
1994 as basically a skate shop in Lower Manhattan. And it kind of became something that like youth counterculture gravitated towards. Skaters, punks, artists, hip hop heads, etc. In fact, in the words of the lawsuit, it was reputed as a brand capturing both the storied street culture of New York City and a true celebration of skateboarding, both as a sport, a lifestyle, and a look.
Can you really say both? That's three things.
And a look.
Not the point.
I've got the skater
Good question.
look, guys.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But as Supreme grew and grew more and more popular on the fashion side of things, they did maintain their presence in skateboarding. They kept a skate team, they filmed videos, they even have bowls in some of their stores.
Oh, really?
And so
Yeah, I hit me with the L really. That looks like not that skatable.
yeah, so even as you've seen them climb like the ranks in fashion and different collabs that they're doing and whatnot, they did keep roots in skateboarding for a fairly long time. More recently, they also saw massive financial success. So in October of 2017,
$1 billion is
they
crazy.
sold a 50% stake to a private equity firm, the Carlyle Group, at a $1 billion valuation.
$500 million
in November
sale.
Of 2020, in an all-cash deal, VF Corporation bought Supreme from the Carlyle.
Do you know who VF Corporation is, guys? Anyone in the chat know? Do you know who else VF Corporation owns? Do we know? Do we know?
Group for $2.1 billion.
I guess I'm not impartial anymore.
Whoa.
Yes. So all the investors were bought out during this. VF owns it outright. And VF, for those of you
North
unfamiliar,
Face?
owns
Yeah, I think-
Vans, is their other
I can't-
big brand.
I
They
can't
also
remember
own the
their
North
random
Face.
companies, but yes,
They own
Vans.
Timberland.
There
They
we go,
own
Mike knows.
Dickies, a couple of other companies like that. Supreme was probably at the end of their portfolio most associated with like a luxury brand. And I think the fit wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
And as you will see, by July of 2024, they agreed to be sold to
Essilor Luxottica.
Exactly.
Damn, it went down? COVID, maybe? I guess, probably? I mean, it's crazy to just be like, yeah, whatever, still 1.5, but it's like, yo, we just lost 600 million.
Own all the sunglasses.
Yeah.
VF took a $600 million loss,
Every-
right?
Almost all the sunglasses.
Or is this just the
Notably-
50% stake? Like, I don't know. It's not clear here, but
a much lesser
haircut,
valuation.
yeah.
Yep. Now, in July of 2024, it was agreed to be sold. And that was actually a letter of intent signed between the two entities. The deal didn't actually close until October.
how
But
can
as
this
part of
random
this,
I company
there was a mandate
buy it for
by Supreme.
1.5 billion? What
Supreme
is it?
leadership was under a
S-
mandate from this letter of intent to sell it that they have to
Siloxero.
actively trim their balance sheet in preparation for this deal.
Yeah.
So, in layman's terms, it's not actually sold yet. They're agreeing to sell it.
Literally just a
and
sunglasses company.
In order for the deal to not get ripped up later on, Supreme's executive team kind of needs to act in a manner consistent with trimming its balance sheet
Yeah.
for this deal to ultimately go through.
So that
Ooh.
Essilor Luxottica has.
See, like that kind of stuff, like that external pressure of the internal workings of the deal, if they could prove that somehow, that actually gives more weight to Tyshawn's claim. Because then he says they were forced to clean up the shop and have less expenses or whatever. So that's why they made up a bullshit reason to fire me. Like, that is actually a bit more legitimate.
Has less to do.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Money in skateboard's minuscule to compare to real world. Yes, it's funny because all people are going to see this title, 26 million skating, blah, blah, blah. And they go, whoa, skaters are making multi-millions? Hell yeah. It's like, no one
Only
is.
close in October.
Not even Tyshawn. Tyshawn's making 1 million from Supreme per year, which is amazing. So sick. Hell yeah. But it's like 26 million is a little misleading.
VF continued ownership of Supreme through the end of the calendar year 2024.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so that's Supreme. So let's introduce Tyshawn here. Tyshawn was
Kalis
born in
and Costin,
1998
that's
and
crazy.
started skating when he was 10. He started working with Supreme as early as 11, and this is from the lawsuit. So he's a prodigy skater, super good, super fast. He's from New York City, and then like all the major skaters are noticing him. There's
Yeah.
a handful of photos.
1 million a year is crazy, but not crazy for a person that's supposed to be Michael Jordan. That's true, but they did say the Michael Jordan of skating. The Michael Jordan of unicycling is making way less than $1 million per year. Like, that's what they were getting at. But still, like, it's nice to have some skaters making $1 million per year, even if it is only like 3 to 5 people.
Of him as a child like this with notable pros. So he's just always kind of been in skateboarding even from when he started
It's his
skating.
whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
It's like a child actor.
Yeah, exactly. He was initially pro for Toy Machine. Actually, he's wearing a Toy Machine shirt in this. But then
He writes in the thing here, he write not pro, but sponsored. I mistakenly said pro, and I meant to say flow. Flow to pro.
got put on FA and went pro for FA in 2016. He started riding for Adidas in
Why
2014
is he
and
gotta
went pro
move
for them
into my
with a
way?
shoe in 2017.
Get out of here!
So he went pro very, very young.
Yeah, Adidas, he would have been 19.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
And then he won
Watch him move
Thrasher
back.
Skater of the Year
Ready?
for the first time in 2018, and then he won
The
it.
kickflip over the train tracks.
That was for his second SOTY win, which he won in 2022.
Spoiler alert.
And
Wait, so what did he do over the first one?
he didn't skate the train tracks for his first SOTY win.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did he win SOTY 3 times then?
So this made him, at the time, only the third
Right,
skater to have
'cause
won
then
the
he won
award
the
twice,
back-to-back.
and I'm pretty sure, like, by far the youngest to have won it twice. And then the lawsuit a couple of times calls him the
times?
Michael Jordan of skateboarding.
Then this guy got it wrong, though, right? She was actually right. Because he won SOTY, kickflips over the train track, then he wins SOTY again, and then he backside flipped it, and then he traded it just randomly. That's what I felt the timeline of events were. He wins SOTY. Maybe I'm... Because I thought when Nigel was meant to win, he won 2 in a row.
Necessarily agree with that. He's certainly like a top 10 skater in terms of fame and celebrity status.
More like a Dwayne Wade.
I don't know. I mean, he's an obvious Hall of Famer,
Yeah.
right? But like, is he?
Might have to look. Yeah, someone fact
The
check.
Michael.
I wouldn't call him the Michael Jordan, but he's like first team all skateboarding for sure.
Yeah, I just feel like
Tony
Michael
Hawk is definitely the
Jordan-
Michael Jordan of skateboarding.
How, Michael Jordan, isn't he the guy on the ones? The dunks? No, that's...
Yeah, Air Jordan.
Yeah, Air Jordan.
That
right?
is what it's clear this lawsuit is trying to paint him as, like, he is this iconic poster child of a brand similar to the way Michael Jordan is for Air Jordan. That's my belief as to why this lawsuit is
They're
using
like,
this language is
I'm
that's
the Michael Jordan for Supreme.
that exactly. That is the picture they're trying to paint.
But Supreme never made you their logo.
Well, that's a
Okay.
different thing.
Okay, different. Okay,
Different.
keep
Am
going.
I tripping? Is my brain like breaking? It says 18 Tyshawn, then 2022 Tyshawn. Maybe I am tripping and it wasn't back to back and it was just winning again. Maybe 2022 was the year that the Niger year, but I thought it was 2023, but I guess it could have been 2022. Yeah, maybe I do have that wrong.
I thought
don't
so.
know.
Okay, so like I said, the crux of this is a wrongful termination suit, basically, right?
Okay.
And so Tyshawn is arguing that his contract with Supreme was unlawfully terminated, and the details of his contract, he signed a number of agreements through the years. The latest one and the current one, when this went down, was signed from August 2023 to December 2025, a 29-month period. Don't know how that happened. And
Why
he
was
was
it
to be paid
29
$1
months?
million per year, which were paid in monthly installments.
COVID vaccine
of
put fake
$83,000.
Saudi memories in my head, maybe.
Now, separately, everybody in skateboarding is talking about how poor pro skaters are and how the industry is terrible. And you've got like Ryan DeCenzo and Tyson Bowerbank on the 9 Club talking about how pros need to work like 3 or 4 jobs. Tyshawn is getting $1 million a year just from Supreme. He has a deal.
Because Supreme is skate adjacent. Skate adjacent company will pay you $1 million a year. Core skate company will absolutely never pay you $1 million a year. Even Nike and Red Bull are skate adjacent. But
His
anyway,
shoes as well. Not just as a sponsor, like he's got signature shoes.
Yeah.
I have no idea how much he's making.
Well,
But what is surprising to me is the volume of skate footage he puts out pales in comparison to the volume of skate footage that someone like Jamie Foy or Chris Joslin has been putting out a ton of footage. I get that like his value is bigger than that, and we'll talk about like some of his modeling stuff and why that might be. But like, I just thought that was crazy. This guy's making $1 million a year just from Supreme, and everybody else at skateboarding is like, we can't make anything. Like, I've got to deliver pizzas.
yeah.
So I thought that was kind of wild.
This adds some interesting flavor.
For sure. Now, this contract also requires him to prominently wear Supreme apparel when he's engaged in skateboarding and going to events and stuff. That makes sense. It also has an exclusivity clause
I got you,
where he's
Ricky,
not
in case
permitted
you
to
care. What is it?
endorse, promote, either wear or carry in public other branded apparel than Supreme. Footwear is
Footwear
excluded. That's for Adidas. He also can't do that for other retailers within skateboarding. However, he owns 2 or 3 companies of his own. He owns a board company now and a hardware thing. And this lawsuit did mention that there were like 3 exclusions for companies he owns, so I presume that's what those were. So no big deal, right?
No, that's
I'm at work right now.
What do you mean he can't indirectly advertise or endorse or otherwise wear, use, or carry in public? Carry in public any branded apparel other than Supreme. So, like, no.
Yeah, so this is directly from the lawsuit. Tyshawn is not permitted to directly or indirectly promote, advertise, or endorse, or otherwise wear, use, carry in public any branded apparel other than Supreme, excluding footwear. So that's what I mean. It's like open and shut, extremely open and shut. Tyshawn is going to try to argue, well, they never enforced it before, but I think good luck with that. That usually doesn't fly.
JanSport backpack?
Why would you pick
Especially how it says indirectly.
Because at first I was going to say Adidas, but then I was like, no, like, let's be real. Like, but he can't, fine.
JanSport? Like, what?
But look, you know, to be fair, don't get this twisted. Someone pays you $1 million a year. Hell yeah, that's reasonable. Like, what the hell? $1 million a year to not wear any other brands? Fuck yeah, that's easy. Hell yeah, that's easy.
Crazy. Why JanSport?
Like, it's not that hard, realistically. Wow, it's a little restrictive, sure. It's also $1 million a year.
I'm not Tyshawn Jones cool. I don't think he's gonna wear JanSport.
Yeah, but is he not allowed to? That's the point. It's not even JanSport.
That's what this would suggest. Okay, great. This is perfect.
That's my point.
Okay.
I mean, they're gonna give you the clothes for free. Just wear Supreme. It's not that hard.
What we also know about Tyshawn is he's a model.
Yeah,
You're missing out on other deals. They're paying you a high premium of $1 million to afford you to miss out on other deals. You don't need to take the Jenko jeans sponsor for $1,000 because you're getting $1 million a year.
How can you be...
He's actively a model.
Yeah, because you are promoting...
He could be making 10 mil. No. He could be making 200K or whatever if he was taking pick and choosing deals and deals and deals. That's why Supreme came in and paid him way more than he would be making in the other companies to buy his loyalty, you know?
And endorsing.
That's how I see it.
Yeah, he's doing different photo shoots for all kinds of different brands. And
also, what is this? I always feel like if I took a photo like this, people would really make fun of me.
Like, bad deal, whoever cut this on Tyshawn's side.
Well, so, historically, the lawsuit claims that Tyshawn has been upfront about these different photo shoots with Supreme, like, the whole time, like, going back a decade ago. And they had really no issue with...
Tyshawn reasonably believed that doing such work benefited both parties with no reason to think otherwise. I mean, to me, that's extremely copium. Like, it literally says what to do, and they're paying you $1 million. Like, where is the discrepancy at all? Like, I don't know. People in the comments of this are going to say, oh, Ricky's siding with the corporation, blah, blah, blah. It seems like, yeah, they fired him for a bullshit reason, but it also seems like they were well within their reasonable, you know, contract to do so. So, I don't know, but we're still learning.
With it, as long as it's not another skateboarding brand.
I don't see it benefiting Supreme. I also agree.
Notes that these issues were never addressed by Supreme over multiple contract renewals.
I think that's a weak-ass argument.
The lawsuit kind of paints this...
It's like if I get a speeding fine, if a police officer pulls me over for speeding, and I go, why are you pulling me over? I speed every single day, and you never pull me over. Now you're going to pull me over? Like, that's not cool. It's like, it doesn't work like that.
Tyshawn doing all this modeling work that's technically not allowed by his contract, but there's an established history of him doing it, and Supreme basically not caring. Right?
Yeah. So then there's no reason that he would feel like he would need to change the language in the contract if he has been up front and it hasn't been initially.
The contract just keeps getting renewed, and I'm sure some of the language changes.
Yeah.
But like, it just keeps getting renewed. Yeah. Everyone's cool with it.
Since he was 11.
Yeah, everyone's cool with it.
Interesting.
And if you think about it from Supreme's perspective, like, if he is all in on Supreme, both feet in on Supreme, but he's also doing shoots for Gucci or Louis Vuitton or whomever.
I really can't see him winning this. But I am not a legal
super
content
mutually
creator.
beneficial.
Yeah. Okay.
So Supreme doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
For years. And in fact, the lawsuit claims that their long pattern of active encouragement and support constitutes knowing and waiving their objection to this term in the contract, right? And term shoots here refers to a series of like 4 photo shoots he did during the term of this current.
See, like what might be like compelling evidence. This is the stupid social media time that we live in. But if on Supreme's Instagram or something, they like reshared this on their story or something, like endorsing it, then maybe I guess we could think that it's endorsing it. I don't know.
So great.
No shot he's winning this.
Everyone's cool. But I'm pretty sure you see where this is going, right?
And we're not.
The sweater is crazy. When I was a kid, my grandma knitted me a sweater that looked like this, like basically the same. See how it's not even like a crisp logo. It's just kind of like looks shitty.
Anymore.
So in August of...
Do you think it was completely his idea too? Usually in this type of skater thing, it's never their idea. There's always someone in their ear, you deserve more, you're this, you're that, blah, 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 blah. There was actually a really interesting parallel in my life that happened. I won't say the company or the person's name, but it was on a company that I wrote for or whatever. And then the company dropped a billboard with the other guy's photo of him skating on it, and they didn't tell him, they didn't say, hey, we're going to pay you, we're going to make a billboard, we're going to do this. They just instantly dropped the billboard with a photo that I believe they owned of him, right? So it's like a little bit of a like, we own the photo, so we can drop a billboard if we want. But then at the same time, they didn't say, hey, we're going to release a billboard, we're going to pay you like $5,000 or whatever. They didn't do that. And then they were going back and forth. And I think from what they told me is like the guy was like, oh, my parents are saying that I should sue them. I should go at them. And they had all these discussions. And I think the company that made the billboard were being like overly generous to be like, all right, we want to make this right. We'll give you like $10,000. And then I think the guy was still like, no, I deserve more, blah, blah, blah. And then the guy ends up getting like kicked off the company, gets $0. And then the big company just makes a new billboard with a different skater because like, yeah, just take a photo of anyone, doesn't really matter. And it all like turned to shit, So it's like, I don't know. Usually I feel like it's always someone like pushing it forward. It's never really like the actual skater. But
Tyshawn
what do I know? I don't know
does
Tyshawn.
This Marc Jacobs photo shoot, which was like a social media thing. Then a termination notice is sent to Tyshawn for breaching contract, breaching this exclusivity clause from this one photo shoot, which was disseminated on...
To me, though, like, see, what's interesting to me is if I was getting $1 million a year and I was promising to never wear other clothes, I would have said to Supreme, hey, Marc Jacobs wants me to do a thing. What do you think? And then they would say, yeah, Ricky, you can do it. And like, maybe I should say, well, the contract says I shouldn't. Can you write that down? Or like, maybe I wouldn't do that. But even just getting a verbal, like, can I do it? It seems insane to just take this brand deal and never mention it to Supreme. That seems crazy. That seems like really out there. Like it literally says, do not do this. And then just take it.
Which was like a
so I don't know. You would think there would be some kind of dialogue.
Breaching this exclusivity clause from this one photo shoot, which was disseminated on social media in August of 2024. This note came on September 12th, 2024.
Well, they just found another $1 million in their budget.
Exactly. And in fact, this termination notice also included saying that it was non-curable. So there's a concept in this where you can terminate Tyshawn immediately for certain things, and those things are enumerated in this. And
see, like, I would think if Tyshawn didn't ever do this, and this was the first time he did this, and this photo just dropped, and Supreme goes, yo, what the hell? That's it. I think that would be reasonable. I think that would be extremely reasonable. But like what they're saying, because there's this history of like, well, he's doing all this other brands and stuff, I think he would have absolutely no case if that is what happened. So it's like the history is what's making this like somewhat interesting, but I still feel like it's kind of open and shut.
The lawsuit doesn't include his whole athlete agreement, but presumably those are like morality clauses that are in normal athlete agreements. Basically, if he, has a sexual harassment or sexual assault thing pop up, Supreme can be like, yo, we're done. And they don't need to do anything or jump through any hoops. Otherwise, though, if it's not something that's enumerated there, the way the process is supposed to have worked based on this contract is they can give him a notice of violation, and then he basically has 30 days to provide a cure.
Yeah, remedy,
and then, or remedy, yeah. And then they figure it out from there, right? In this case, they did not do that. They just terminated him outright and immediately and said it was a non-curable breach, meaning
it's called an amendment. Both parties are informed, not a big deal.
Supreme's brand by Tyshawn participating in this Marc Jacobs shoot is totally non-curable and material to putting Supreme in a negative position.
How much did he get for the Marc Jacobs shoot, you think, guys? One shoot and like social media posts. Surely it must pale in comparison to $1 million per year. You would think.
Without reading the whole
What's he gonna get, like 20K maybe? I feel like that would be high.
Just like,
20 to 50K.
I mean, the contract.
At least 50K.
If you're going by the letter of the law, like, he has a lot to prove.
Tyshawn.
He's breaking the contract over and over with no repercussion.
Yeah, but that's what yes. By the letter of it, you're sure he's breaking it. And that's what the lawsuit, that's what like the first half of the lawsuit reads, is trying to establish, and I summarized it, but it is establishing like a really long pattern of behavior of he doing all this modeling work and Supreme being like, yeah, that's great.
Totally. I'm just like, from my perspective.
Imagine if it's like one Instagram story breaks the case. I wouldn't think it would there. I really just think that the Supreme is easily going to win this.
I'm like, this is a huge bummer. Someone dropped the ball. Okay, continue. Sorry, it's just like, if you're going to go, like, your company going into an M&A, you look at these things.
Yeah, and somebody from Tyshawn's team at some point in time probably should have been like, hey, we need to remove this exclusivity clause that we are constantly breaking.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I mean. It's such a risk. For $1 million a year, why are you taking such risk? Come on.
That's probably what should have happened.
Yes.
I also see how they got into this spot.
Totally. I'm just saying.
Yeah. So, now this lawsuit, though, is also suggesting that this isn't just a random time at which Supreme has decided to enact this exclusivity clause. It is related to them being sold.
Yeah, why isn't Superman suing? Come on.
In fact, they're arguing it's a byproduct.
You could say, guys, you could really say that this Superman sweater is Tyshawn's kryptonite.
Needing to shed debt, and this was a really easy way for them to free up $83,000 a month.
Yeah.
Superman sues for 27.
It is suggesting that this termination is really the result of.
Oh, Ratzola.
And so that's where this
Ricky working on the dad jokes. Wasn't that funny?
Comes from.
No
He's
loss.
got 15 months left on his contract.
Yeah.
That's $1.25 million. But the lawsuit is actually for 26.
Wait, 80K a month? What was 80K a month?
Oh, Ratzola.
And so that's where this $1.25 million lawsuit comes from. He has got 15 months
salary.
left.
Well, yeah, wasn't it 1 million per year? So 100K a month would be 1.2 mil.
His contract, that's 1.25 million. But the lawsuit is actually for $26.25 million.
I was like, this is a no-brainer.
Wild.
You pay him out, or you split the difference.
Yep.
It's actually a head scratcher.
So the other $25 million comes from basically the lost opportunity and damage to Tyshawn's reputation as.
Oh my god. What do defamation cases usually go for? I was actually looking up. There's one in Australia. I think I talked about it on stream. The actress, the Australian tabloid magazines like Women's Weekly and stuff were just constantly talking shit on this one Australian actress, and she sued him for like $4 million Australian, and that was like a big deal, and they were openly publishing magazines talking shit on her, like super clear cut, and she's a working Hollywood actress, and she only got like 4 million, you know? So it's, I mean, yeah, Australian legal system, blah, 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 different, who knows? But still, like, that seems like if she's only getting 4 million in like the clearest defamation case ever, then like 25 is insane.
A celebrity and a professional who makes all his money from brand relationships. And the argument here is that he has been sullied by their false claims. And so they do talk a lot about how Supreme has been going around, apparently, and making statements suggesting we had to let Tyshawn go, or we...
But if they fired him, the statement of saying we had to let Tyshawn go is correct. No? No longer doing business with Tyshawn is also a correct statement. Kicked Tyshawn off, also correct statement.
Don't do business with Tyshawn anymore,
like
or we kicked Tyshawn
defamation.
off. And that's largely what the second half of this lawsuit goes into. I'm not going to dig really far into it because, to me, being an outsider, it's much more hearsay than the first half. In that, you know, it's talking about like he saw the photographer that did the Marc Jacobs shoot.
Yeah.
He saw him at Paris Fashion Week in January of this year. And that photographer came up to him and was like, hey, I hear you're not with Supreme anymore because of this.
Interesting.
And so it's just like, it's the rumor mill going around that they're using.
You know what?
Tyshawn's
law is not always super straightforward. Maybe this $25 million silliness added on was Tyshawn's plan to get a lot of attention and negative PR against Supreme. Because if he only sued for 1.25 mil, then they say, well, whatever, $1 million lawsuit, like, who gives a fuck? But then when they say, well, the biggest one ever, 26 million, maybe that was actually part of the psychological warfare, you know? Because then all this shit is picking it up. The biggest skateboarding lawsuit of all time. I don't know. We could think about things like that too.
Is using to say he has lost opportunities because he is now associated with having to be
the Michael Jordan of skating.
The
Michael Jordan of skating in the biggest skateboarding court case ever
of the relationship, and that is where the $25 million comes from. I would say
pro skater sues penalties.
I would say that's steep.
That's steep.
I can believe that there is some degree of damage there.
For sure.
These guys are too agreeable, I feel like.
And that is why a jury is going to decide how much money I don't know if a jury will. They'll probably figure out how to settle this, but the lawsuit is requesting a jury trial.
Got it. I mean,
and that's what this lawsuit is about.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's why I didn't include much about that part of the lawsuit, is because the way it reads, like
the Michael Jordan of $26 million lawsuit.
Evidence.
What do you think Michael Jordan's biggest lawsuit is? I'm sure he's had a bunch of lawsuits
in the lawsuit throughout that section, but me just regurgitating what they're alleging different people says, just kind of there's not much to talk about. It's just rumors and gossip that we're not really privy to. So
the most prominent lawsuit involving Michael Jordan was against Chicago grocery store chain that used his name and likeness in advertisements without his permission. The jury awarded Jordan $8.9 million in damages. Let's go. So we had to get higher than 9.
And
wow.
Following the Diddy trial? Hell yeah, I'm following the Diddy trial, Gia. What do you mean? Of course. Is it on again today? Like, how do we, what do I cover it every day?
I am sure things will move quickly.
I look forward to staying updated on this.
Yeah, great.
This is some good gossip.
Great. I love it.
Also, like, am I on Tyshawn's side or Supreme's?
Oh,
See, this is what I say. I'm on no one's side. I'm just objectively trying to understand the information. I love skaters getting money, but at the same time, I feel like it sucks what Supreme did. They weaseled their way out of paying him, and they should have paid him to completion of the contract, right? That's what it seems like. But at the same time, will Tyshawn win in court? I think absolutely not. But maybe he could get a little bit back from a settlement. That's my official take.
Initially, my gut initially said, I think usually in the like the skater versus big business, as much as you want to cheer for the skater, typically the big business is like legally and contractually in the right.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's morally or ethically the same as being right.
By the letter of the agreement they signed.
Yeah. Usually the corporation is correct.
Thank you, Miss Mouse. Have a good one.
In this case, I'm totally with Tyshawn. At least for the first part. Like, you shouldn't.
But see, like, I think it's kind of funny because, like, at least for the first part is like at least for the 1/25th of the court case. No, I'm not in for the other 24 out of 25, but I'm in for the first 25th.
He was absolutely terminated. I would have to believe that he was terminated unjustly.
That's where I feel like, yes, sentimentally and respectfully, totally unjust. By the letter of the contract, like, I see how when the company's been sold for its third time, that goes out the window. Sentiment and respect. And you're just like, here's $1 million.
Yeah, but if you, I mean, that's what I'm curious for from the legal mechanism, is if you establish a years-long pattern of ignoring this clause, well, you know,
yeah, that's the interesting question.
Like Supreme.
The thing with court cases and stuff is usually what will happen is there'll be one big interesting court case where this has previously happened. Something where the company, why did I pause? Let's get over that. There'll be some kind of interesting thing where this has previously happened. And they proved it or they didn't prove it. And then when they do the new case, they look to the other case and they go, well, this was proved this one time. How is this similar to this time? That's usually how it works. I'm sure there must be similar court cases where they were knowingly breaking the contract and the company was like encouraging that.
I understand that, like, or what I'm saying is the business landscape, the relationship landscape takes a different route when you are being sold for a haircut.
Yeah.
Like, that's the perspective I'm coming from, is like, if you are being bought, you go in and you look at all of your active contracts.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the perfect time to cut contracts. Somebody looking at a spreadsheet just starts cutting contracts and finding any reason they can to cut contracts.
Well, and
like, that's how it works.
Yes,
yeah.
And on the flip side, I'm saying they've been sold before, but like, if you're doing something like this, part of the due diligence is reviewing the termination clauses in all of these contracts so that you know how and when you can do it.
And you'd see,
like, if Tyshawn has a team that's helping him sign the contracts, they definitely should have said to him, hey, are we sure we want to do all this modeling stuff? And then he goes, yeah, Supreme are cool with it. And I go, well, it does technically say they could fire you at any point in time because you are doing this. And then they go, no, it's fine.
Get right away, and it's clear as day.
Yeah, and so then it's like, okay, so like, we can do this, and then you eventually have...
From what I understand, the agreement of buying Supreme, they had to cut costs and keep a certain budget. Well, yeah, even if that's true, they say, okay, if you can get your expenses down by 10 million or whatever, then we'll finalize the sale. I mean, that's fine. They say, oh, we actually could have fired this guy ages ago, but now we will actually fire him because it's in our best interest to fire him. To me, that kind of makes sense.
Have to make
like,
cuts.
It's not good,
and
but
so
it kind of
at a
makes
certain
sense.
point, it's like,
Winnie THPS, what up?
We're trying to still exist.
Yeah, well... Then you end up on every news website.
Yeah.
And are probably gonna have to pay
business, baby.
more
Yeah,
than
exactly.
the 1.25.
You wanna play with the $1 million deals? You're gonna got like this sometimes. I feel like that is business, baby. I mean, like, it sucks that happened to him, but he did get to make a lot of money from them for a long period of time, right? But yeah, I mean, I feel like it's like lesson learned. Okay, don't do what the contract says not to do.
You originally needed to over the course of a year and a half.
What up, Jan?
And Supreme's brand value might take a huge hit.
Yep. Interesting.
Yeah. So this was like,
I don't know about that. I don't think that
like,
this really matters too much.
Reads contracts, like, bad business decision. It was a decision made under pressure without thinking at all through the repercussions.
Well, I am glad to finally provide you some hot goss from skateboarding that you really enjoyed. I think you enjoyed.
But yeah, that was a really good video. Like, shout out to them. See what I mean? They're very well researched. Like, he read the whole thing and then he's pulling up the important parts like on the video. Like, hell yeah, good stuff. I like the channel a lot. I hope they keep up the good videos. Okay, what I want to do now is we have the document too. So why don't we ask ChatGPT? It's kind of crazy there's a photo in the document. Look, how many pages? 41 pages? At least we get a sick photo in there. 41-page document. All right, should we ask ChatGPT? What does this mean? Hello, I have a legal document. Can you explain the case to me if I send it? Okay, 41 pages. How can it just read 41 pages? Boom, look at this shit. This is fucking sick. How can AI be so smart? What is the best for sunburn? That's a permanent ban. Look how good it is! Fuck! I love AI for this kind of shit. I really think AI will become doctor and lawyer. You know, maybe it's not going to become painter, but doctor and lawyer, hell yeah. Alright, case summary. The Supreme Court of the State of New York, County of New York. It's funny because it says Supreme. Grind Hard Holdings Corp versus Tyshawn Jones. Is that what Supreme is called? I'd trust AI with my life in court for real. Me too. Lawyer is scary. Yeah, nah. I think doctor, lawyer, I trust them. I don't trust them with more objective type stuff. Defend it. Chapter 4 Corp doing business as Supreme, the streetwear brand. Thanks for clarifying, AI. Tyshawn Jones and his company are suing Supreme for wrongful termination. Supreme ended Tyshawn's endorsement agreement without giving him a proper 30-day chance to cure/fix any alleged breach, which was a requirement under the contract. Okay, so this is an important distinction. They are suing him. Sorry, he's suing Supreme, not saying I didn't wear the other clothes, saying I did wear the other clothes, but in the contract you give me a chance to correct that for 30 days, and you did not give me that. So, okay, so that's a bit of a difference of him. He's admitting that he did wrong, but he's saying that you didn't give me enough of a chance to fix. But I think what they would argue back is they'll say something to the effect of like, this was bad enough that we didn't have to. Did I see someone had an AI lawyer and the judge yelled at him? I mean, AI lawyer low-key could give fire arguments. Defamation. After the termination, Supreme allegedly made false and damaging statements about Tyshawn to key people in skateboarding and fashion industry, claiming he had breached the contract, but it had to be like okay, this seems like no base, like not much substance, and extremely difficult to prove. We can ask ChatGPT how one would prove this after. Breach of confidential and non-disparagement clause. The contract prohibited both parties from speaking negatively about each other or disclosing confidential information, which Tyshawn says Supreme violated after the termination. I mean, you're always allowed to tell the truth, though. You just have to prove that it is the truth. So if you say, we fired him, and you did fire him, that's not negative. Why Supreme terminated the contract? According to the complaint, Supreme claimed Tyshawn breached exclusivity terms by appearing in Marc Jacobs' photo shoot. They considered this material non-curable breach. This is really the argument. Is it curable? Should you have given him 30 days? However, Tyshawn argues that Supreme knew and had tolerated similar behavior for years, including other model shoots for brands like Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Prada. Supreme never warned or objected to these appearances in the past. Supreme even benefited from his high-profile. That's a wild claim. Should we follow up with ChatGPT? The sudden termination just weeks before the sale of Supreme to the new parent company, random sunglasses, piece of shit, was pretext to cut costs to avoid paying Tyshawn millions owed under the contract, including his stock options. 1.25 unpaid contracts. And remember, this wasn't 12-month period. It was a random amount of months. Damages for his professional reputation, punitive damages to punish Supreme for bad faith and public defamation. Additional damages related to stock options. But see, it seems like this is all combined in there. Careful hiring Tyshawn. We had to let him go because he was breaking exclusivity, is what I feel Tyshawn was alluding to. But isn't that exactly what happened? If someone someone murders someone, hey, you might not want to work with them. They murdered someone. That's not hearsay. That's just objective truth. And if you can prove that it's truth, then you're not doing anything wrong. You're allowed to criticize people with the truth. Key legal points. The contract required a 30-day notice, opportunity to cure any breach of termination. Supreme did not provide. Supreme's long-term tolerance of Tyshawn's modeling and other skateboards could be seen as waiving their right to object now. Let's ask about that. Defamatory statements about Tyshawn could qualify as defamation per se, especially because his career depends on his reputation. Okay. Can you explain more about this? And we'll ask about the proving. Has there ever been similar cases? In the workforce, you can't say stuff like that. Yes, you can. You absolutely can say, we fight, or you could say like Tyshawn and our agreement was voided because of his conduct. You could say something like that, but you couldn't say, oh, Tyshawn was meant to do this and he didn't do this. You couldn't say specific intricate workings, but you could say generally that he breached the contract. I'm pretty sure. All right, here we go. Absolutely. Let's break down what waiver by conduct means. In contract law, a waiver happens when the party voluntarily gives up legal right, either explicitly in writing or through behavior over time, even if the contract says otherwise. If Supreme allowed Tyshawn to model for the brand in the past, said nothing about it, and even encouraged it, they may have waived their rights only first. The logic is you can't ignore a rule for years and suddenly enforce it as if it always mattered, especially when the other party relied on your silence. There are a few legal precedents where the court found that long-term acceptance of a behavior can prevent a party from suddenly enforcing the contract. Travelers International AG versus Trans World Airlines. A party claimed a contract had been breached even though they ignored a similar breach for years. The court had a long-term acceptance of conduct without objective constituted waiver. A party's course over the accepting non-conforming period over time may constitute waiver. Tell me more. Bank versus real estate. A lender accepted payments after a technical default, then later tried to enforce the default. The court ruled by accepting the behavior. But see, to me, that's not similar to this. That's way different to this. Realtor LLC credit union. A landlord allow late rent payments for years, then tried to evict the tenant for the late payment. Yeah, see, that's interesting. The court said the landlord waived the right to enforce strict punitive by not objectifying earlier. They didn't complain soon enough. How this applies to Tyshawn. Tyshawn had modeled for brands like Louis Vuitton, Prada, Gucci repeatedly. Supreme even allegedly told him it was okay. See, that might have been verbal. See, like, if they verbally did say, you can do this, and then they later try to weasel out, that's scum. Like, that's a scumbag piece of shit action, right? That's, like, a terrible thing to do. But we're not here to talk about ethics. We're here to talk about who do we think will win the case, right? So, like, if they verbally said, yeah, man, go with Marc Jacobs, like, that's fucked. That's sad that they did that. But I think they still won't be able to prove it. As long as it wasn't for another skateboarding, Supreme benefited from his rising profile in the luxury fashion industry. Then suddenly they use a similar shoot as the sole reason for his contract. If Supreme tolerated the same conduct before, then it suddenly can't use a justification. Would you like help drafting or reviewing a waiver-related argument response? Who do you think will win this case? What do you think is most likely to happen? Great question. While I can't predict the outcome with certainty, I can offer an informed analysis. Clear contract language. The agreement required 30 days notice and opportunity to cure any alleged breach for termination. Supreme did not give this notice. They appear to have very solid legal claim. Long-standing acceptance. Supreme allowed and encouraged similar modding behavior. In the past, this could be deemed as waiver by conduct, undermining the argument that Marc Jacobs' shoot was non-curable. Strong evidence is reputational harm. Tyshawn is a celebrity athlete whose income depends on public image. Allegations of misconduct by a major brand like Supreme could be seen as defamation per se, meaning damages could be presumed. I think damages always need to be proved though, right? Motive. The complaint presents credible context that Supreme wanted to cut costs before its sale. If the court sees the termination as a pretext, hurts Supreme's credibility. Yeah, see that does. Maybe the case is actually kind of interesting. I thought it's more open and shut, but maybe it is a little bit more dynamic. Weaker position. Oh my goodness. Stronger position. Okay, so that's what they're saying. They're saying Tyshawn is stronger and Supreme is weaker. Breach of exclusivity caused Tyshawn wore non-Supreme apparel. Non-curable breach. They might argue that some breaches like public modeling can't be undone. See, I think they would argue that too. What's going to happen? Marc Jacobs is going to delete the post or whatever? It's already out. See, I think that's a good argument. However, it's unlikely to see because the contract explicitly requires a cure period with no exceptions for non-curable breaches. Court usually enforce written notice requirements strictly, especially in high-value endorsement deals. Written notice requirements strictly. Okay, they're saying you usually always need to write stuff. Supreme's past tolerance undermines any claim that the breach was serious enough to justify termination without warning. Most likely outcome, settlement. Supreme will likely want to avoid trial, especially with the reputational risk. Large payment to Tyshawn, possibly in the millions. Confidential agreement, no admission of wrongdoing. Partial victory for Tyshawn goes to trial. Tyshawn is likely to win. Breach of contract claim. Get the remainder of his contract. The court may also award damages. So what's interesting here, guys, is you got to think like a business, okay? Given the contract of Supreme's past conduct, a full win for Supreme is extremely unlikely. Wow, okay. So it basically, okay, ChatGPT is saying it's more legitimate than what I was saying. But this is how you got to think, right? We got to think like Supreme, okay? Supreme wants to sell the company. Supreme currently must pay Tyshawn $1.25 million more. So if Supreme goes to court, if Supreme goes to trial, and they end up spending less than $1.25 million over the course of doing all this, they are up. Because they would have had to spend at least $1.25 million to pay out the rest of his contract. So if firing him let them make the sale, and then now they have to settle, and even settle for $1.25 million, they're still coming out great, because they're like, whatever, we were going to pay that anyway, now we got to fire him, and we got to sell the company. Like, it kind of makes sense for them to want to do that. But what if they get negative clout? I feel like in this type of shit, random court case of Supreme, I feel like it's not really that negative. No one gives a fuck about contract dispute, like minor thing. People care about like big major thing or whatever. But just random contract dispute, I feel like people don't really care that much. But I could be wrong. I don't think ride or die Supreme people are saying, damn, they did him dirty, I'm never going to buy it again. But I could be wrong. Maybe they're trying to pull what Twitter did to E. Musk. He was trapped. They found the company wasn't worth it selling for. Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying is if they do this and they settle for 1.25 mil, it's still positive for Supreme. So for Tyshawn to like really make it negative for Supreme, he has to gain more money than 1.25 mil. But I mean, if he gets paid out the rest of the contract, that's still good as well. I feel like. Yeah, okay, that was interesting. I feel like that's probably my take, is that they will probably pay out the rest of the contract and then just dismiss the other stuff. But if you're Tyshawn and they offer you the settlement, how much are you going to take? If they say, all right, fine, we'll pay 1.25 mil, I would just say, hell yeah. And then he can do all the brand deals that he wants. He doesn't have to do anything else. Paying 1.25 mil isn't that bad for Supreme? Yeah. Okay, now I think that's most likely what's going to happen. ChatGPT swayed me. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's interesting to learn more about shit like this. I feel like learning more about the legal system is kind of interesting. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think. And if you want me to cover more court cases in the future, P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Sean Combs, let me know.